Good evening, and welcome to A Chesapeake Perspective. My name is David Sikorsky. I'm the Executive Director of Coastal Conservation Association, Maryland. I'm coming to you tonight from the Chesapeake Bay Environmental Center. There's no better place than to introduce a conversation about expanding angler access. Here at the Environmental Center, students come to summer camps, the public has access to this beautiful marshland habitat, and as you see behind us, we build habitat here too. That's what this trailer is all about behind me, building habitat for the future. Habitat, conservation, and access are all directly linked. Without healthy resources and access to them, what future do we have for the Chesapeake Bay, and what are we truly passing on? Tonight's panel is going to dig into some of the details and some of the hard work that's being done in this region to make sure that we're introducing more people into our fisheries, but also just to access our public lands and be aware of them. They say knowledge is power. And it's places like this where young students may come for a summer camp, realize that all this is accessible to them. And so now it's our job to make sure that that spark turns into a flame that burns bright. And some of those students that get introduced to fishing or just the natural world will be conservation leaders for the future. To me, that's what expanding angler access is all about. And I really look forward to the conversation that's going to kick off right now. So take it away, Lenny.
Hey there, people. I'm Lenny Rudow, Angler-in-Chief of FishTalk magazine, a lifelong Chesapeake Bay angler, and your host for tonight, which is all about angler access, as you now know. Don't forget, folks, we want to know what you want to know. So plug your questions into the comments. Our man behind the curtain, Zach, he will grab those questions, bring them up on screen, and we will get them answered. But before we get started, we do want to thank our partners for making Chesapeake Perspectives a reality. These are organizations and companies that have stepped up to help support our fishing community here on the Chesapeake. So thank you, CCA Maryland, Yamaha Rightwaters, the Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership, the American Sport Fishing Association, the Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation, Boat US, and the Marine Trades Association of Maryland. Most importantly, I want to thank you anglers for tuning in and taking your time here and now to become a better educated, more aware angler. So why are we talking about access? You know, many of us take angler access for granted. We have our own spots and heck, maybe even a boat, but not everybody who wants to fish does have a convenient place nearby, and not everybody has a boat. And we've seen signs like these go up in some good fishing spots in our own backyards. In fact, all these pictures are of new signs that went up in Maryland over the last couple of years. And the issue of access, it goes beyond mere physical entry. Lower bag limits, shorter seasons, these limit our access too. And, you know, recently we've had a lot of changes that have affected that access. Clearly, there's more to this issue than meets the eye. Now, hopefully, some of the experts we have here tonight will help us wrap our heads around these issues and better understand how we can play a constructive role in expanding access rather than watching it get rolled back. To get a national perspective on angler access, which is a problem nationwide, we have with us tonight Stephanie Vatalaro. Stephanie is a Senior Vice President of Marketing and Communications at the Recreational Boating and Fishing Foundation. She's devoted the last 16 years of her career to getting more people out on the water, fishing, boating, and conserving our nation's waterways. She serves on the American Sport Fishing Association's Marketing and Market Insights Committees, Boating Industries Leadership Council, the Marine Marketer of America's Board of Directors, and NOAA's National Marine Sanctuary's Business Advisory Council. She grew up in the Florida Keys. We'll forgive you for that, Stephanie. But is the daughter of a flats fishing guide, so that's a plus. And now spends her summers fishing and boating with her family on the Potomac River in Virginia. Stephanie was recognized in Boating Industry's 2020 Women Making Waves. So, Stephanie, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And we want to know, are you getting excited for Cobia? The season opened up today.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to the conversation.
Very cool. Thanks for joining us. We also want to introduce EJ Harman. Now, those of you from the Annapolis area, you may recognize EJ from one of our premier tackle shops around here. That's Angler's Sports Center. EJ grew up fishing in the bay and its tributaries. He raised two sons fishing and crabbing on the bay. And after a career in human resources and leadership development, he went to work for Anglers, where he helped build a model for community support via the sport of fishing. This is how the concept for Combos for Kids, which is now in its third year, was born. Welcome, EJ. We'll get into Combos for Kids in a bit, but right now the big question is, what's the top selling baited anglers right now? What's everyone fishing with?
If we can get the LY, it's the LY. Yes, for sure. Fresh LY for sure.
Very cool. Well, thanks for being with us, EJ.
Thank you. Thank you, Lenny. Appreciate it.
We also have with us Donna Morrow. Donna has been helping get people on the water since she started her career as a sailing instructor at age 16. She joined the Maryland Department of Natural Resources in 1998, where she has led the Maryland Clean Marinas and Clean Boater initiatives. She co-chairs the DNR's R3 team. Remember that R3, folks. That's going to come up a little later. And she helps engage and get participants returning into outdoor recreation. In her free time, Donna enjoys racing her boat in the AYC Wednesday night races and getting out on her 21-foot Parker with her husband. Well, Donna, how do you like that little Parker?
Oh, I love it. It's even convinced me to, cast a little bit and start dipping my toe into fishing.
Very nice. Well, thanks for being here. So to start off, let's get a look at the big picture, because as we fight access battles here on the Chesapeake, they're also raging from coast to coast. So, Stephanie, I want to start with you. Can you please give us an idea of the scope of the access issue on a national basis?
Sure, happy to. So RBFF, for people who may not know, our mission is to get more people out on the water fishing and boating and buying their license and buying tackle and doing all those things that contribute to the conservation of our waterways. So we do participation studies annually that looks at, why people are getting on the water, what motivates them, what's keeping them from getting on the water. And access, time and time again, is one of those major barriers that we have yet to overcome. And it's local and it's national, it's everywhere. And I think you can really kind of break it down into two parts. There's this perceived access, which is people think that opportunities don't exist nearby and that they have to get in their car and they have to drive hours to their fishing location when there may be a pond, in a park nearby they're not aware of. But then there's, the actual barrier. Lands are getting closed for conservation. There's overcrowding is a problem that pops up about why people aren't having a good time on the water. Maybe they get to the ramp and it's so crowded they want to just turn around and go. So on a national level, it is absolutely an issue.
Very, very interesting. Donna, let's bring it down to a more local and regional level. We know the DNR is a government agency, right? It does its part in trying to expand angler access. That's really evident for anyone who lives around here, but there are probably other government agencies doing their best to serve their constituents, and you can engage in a little bit of a push and a pull there, right?
I suppose so, although I'd like to think we do a fairly good job of working together. Most, whether it would be a county, Parks and Rec, for example, they're just as interested in expanding access to the water. That's a big deal here in Maryland. It's just plain old water access. Where can I even just put a kayak in, whether I'm fishing or anything? So I know throughout the state, most of the counties, that's a big priority, and even the cities and municipalities. But the state, for sure, has worked really hard to make sure we've developed our webpage to improve mapping there so that people can really find where their nearest access is, and maybe find something that's not as crowded, like you kind of alluded to. Sometimes you go to the same place and it's just too busy, or there's not enough parking because it's too popular. So where else can I go is an important thing to let people know.
So that's interesting. The example that often jumps into my head of that push and that pull is Calvert Cliffs, where there's a big giant beaver pond that's full of snakeheads. And for a while there, lots of people were going and fishing it. On a sunny Saturday in the spring, you might have seen 10, 15 people there. But evidently some hikers and bikers and other folks, for whatever reason, there was some abrasion there and the no fishing signs went up. Mm-hmm. And it was like, shucks, we lost another spot. It was a bummer. But I got to say, you brought up the angler access map. Zach, can we get that up? Because I'm very familiar with that map. I've used it myself. And honestly, whoever developed this for the DNR should get a pat on the back. They really should. It's a pretty phenomenal tool that people can use to find new spots to fish in areas they're completely unfamiliar with. I went and looked at it for Western Maryland before heading out there, and I had no idea about some of the access points. So it was really interesting to learn about them. Folks, just so you know, if you pull up this map, you just click on the little dot. You can zoom in, zoom out. You click on the little dot. It'll tell you, hey, there are piers here, there are restrooms here, there's parking here. It'll tell you what's not there. It'll tell you if there are any specific requirements for permitting or special regulations, everything like that. So it really is a good resource. I also want to point out real quick, just I guess a little housekeeping note, for anybody who saw that link pop up and then go away, don't worry about it. If you go to the Chesapeake Perspectives page at fishtalkmag.com, and you can just go to fishtalkmag.com and type perspective into the search box, and it'll pop right up. All these links that you're going to see tonight and in all the previous Chesapeake Perspective shows are on there. So it's a hub. You can find all that good stuff right there. It makes it really easy. Thank you, Dave. Dave's chiming in to let us know it's America in miniature. It certainly is. You do have brook trout on one side, you got marlin on the other. Man, you got everything. That's why I love Maryland. It really is. You're not going to find a bigger cheerleader for Maryland than me. Okay, it's excellent. But that said, we do also want to put up the link for Virginia for the Virginia folks that are watching. The state of Virginia has that's. Did we lose the Virginia link? We might have lost the. Oh, there it is. Thank you, Zach. So Virginia on the freshwater side does a pretty darn good job also of helping folks figure out where to fish. The DWR has an entire webpage with a bunch of different links. You can get there it is. Thank you, Zach. You can look at different lakes, different rivers, and it has information on all of those as well. Not so much on the bay side. That's more on the freshwater side. But, we want folks to be aware of that. We want them to know it. And you know what this makes me wonder? I got a question for you, EJ. This makes me wonder something. How often have you been in Anglers and people have walked in and just asked, where can I go fishing?
All the time, almost on a daily basis. And if I may, I'd like to add another kudos to the DNR, to their app. So the MD DNR app is phenomenal. And that's one of the things that we tend to push people towards because it's so easy to use. You literally pull up the app, you click the little picture of the fish, you put in a location, you select the county, and you can just explore the entire state of different places to fish because it tells you what type of species, like you were saying, Lenny, with the map. They have that in a format within the app itself, and it's great. It's a great little tool to use. Yeah,
that's really super interesting. I'm not a giant app guy because the phone, this little box of magic here pretty much just confuses me most of the time, but I know that the younger crowd is very into the apps, so that's darn good to know. So these folks walking into the store, a lot of them, if they're asking where to go fishing, they're probably going to be relatively new anglers, right? Mm-hmm. And yes. In the recreational community, there's often sort of a knee-jerk reaction of it's crowded, right? What crowding has already come up. I don't necessarily want more people to go to my fishing hole, right? But I want everybody out there to remember that the stronger a voice the fishing community has, the more people we have out there fishing, the more we count. And if you look at where fishing access gets lost, gets regulated away, it's quite often where fishing isn't really popular, where there aren't a whole lot of people out there engaging in the activity. So this brings me to that whole 3R thing and the buzzwords, recruitment, retention. Donna, tell us about 3R.
R3, recruit, retain, reactivate, right? We want to recruit new participants, right? The folks who've never fished, but they've thought about it, they've seen it, they might have wondered about it. How do we, there's a whole, strategy to just getting them to even try it and then come back and assist them and help them through the process of it, really be adopting it as their new hobby. There are a lot of folks that are already fishing. Maybe they let their license lapse a couple of years in a row. How do we get them back in and buy another license? As Stephanie mentioned earlier on, the licensing and the tackle and all the things that come with that are what fund much of what DNR and other natural resources agencies does to protect, conserve, stock fish, all these things. So that's a big part of it. And then reactivating means, maybe people have lapsed and it's been a long time, and how can we lure them back? What's the next big fish story that we can get them interested in coming back into the sport and maybe, reignite their fire. So we've got a team of people kind of across all the units in our agency: wildlife, fishing, marketing, all the different parts of DNR, but we don't really have a budget for this effort. And we of course, like everything at DNR, right? If you want to do it, you just got to do it yourself with what you can. But we are so fortunate to have the great team at RBFF that puts together some awesome materials and ideas for us that we use as much as we can.
So I'm a little confused about one point. You mentioned reactivation. You mean there are people who actually tried fishing and then they're not like constantly doing it all the time after that?
I know, it's hard to believe.
I don't get it. It does not compute.
I know. Well, it's true. And then, of course, there's certainly a lot of things that compete for people's time, right? Or young, busy families. And so how do we make it easy for them or get them back into the fold? And maybe when the kids are a little older, you don't do it maybe when they're real tiny. And now the kids are now 7, 8, 9 years old. Can we reactivate your interest and get you back on the water or out on the pond or wherever it might be?
Well, I, for one, hope those efforts are fruitful. And I want to turn this back to Stephanie because, hey, this is what you do all day, right? Can you give us an idea of how recruitment, how retention, how you fight these battles on a national scale at RBFF?
Yeah, so our organization was founded in 1998, and up until the last couple of years, we've been primarily focused on that recruitment piece, bringing newcomers into the sport. And we do that primarily through our Take Me Fishing brand and takemefishing.org, where we drive people to learn how to fish and where to fish. We have a national map, which, we're super pleased that Maryland DNR and others have their own as well, because we all know that fishing can be so local. But we do work with the states to populate our maps to ensure that we have, public locations. So, I told you earlier, we look at the participation numbers really close every year, and that newcomer number has been growing over the last several years. And participation overall has been steadily increasing with some ups and downs. But the trend we're seeing that's really bad is what we have is a leaky bucket. We're putting people into the bucket and they're falling out. And in many cases, they're falling out at a higher rate than we can keep up with by putting newcomers in. That retention piece. We used to lose anywhere between 4 and 5 million anglers a year, like 7 years ago. Now it's upwards of 12 million. So in working with our state partners and our other stakeholder partners, we're trying to figure out, what is it that's driving people away? What's taking them away? What's that time barrier? So that we can effectively create change there and plug that bucket.
I got to ask you a question out of the blue. This was not on the list of questions, but you just made me think of something, and I'm really wondering it. Everybody pretty much knows fishing and boating. The outdoor activities got a monster boost through COVID because everybody was like, I want to go outside and do something fun, right? What happened after? What's the post-COVID landscape like?
So, yeah, absolutely. We had a huge nationwide of 5 million more people went fishing in 2020. And we all knew it was coming, right? We saw the signs. Our web traffic was higher. Our social, engagement was higher. You're right. Everybody wanted to get outside and do something they could do social distancing safely or whatnot. We did a study on those new anglers that year because we knew this was going to be a problem. You've got all these newcomers coming in. It's probably crowded. They don't know what they're doing. They're probably buying their equipment, on Amazon because they don't know what a local tackle shop is. And we lost about half of them. In 2021, participation went down by about 4 million. However, in our special report on fishing, which comes out every July-ish, and I'll give you a little preview, numbers are back up again in 2022. We're back up to that almost 55 million number. So we don't know why yet. And that doesn't necessarily reflect what's happening with fishing license sales and tackle sales. So we have some understanding to do there, but it's been an interesting roller coaster ride, that's for sure.
That's interesting. 55 million. So I wonder how that compares to like golf, right? Golf is on TV. Golf is super popular, right? I think we crush it, right? I think fishing pretty much crushes golf numbers wise.
I agree.
Yeah, I just wish we had their budget to recruit newcomers.
So this whole recruitment thing, we're going to turn to EJ now because this is basically what you live for, right? Yeah. This is a big part of what you do.
Yeah.
Why don't you give us the lowdown on combos for kids and what it does on a local basis to recruit new anglers?
Yeah. So Combos for Kids was formed about 3 years ago, like Lenny was saying in my little bio, with the sole goal of giving children and families who may not have access to fishing. We're talking about access to fishing. These are underserved families in need, kids in need, and just pouring into them through the sport that we love so much. So we partner with a lot of different like-minded organizations. We do a lot of work with Baltimore City inner city youth. One of our major partners is Level 82, Torrey Smith's organization, and he's a great individual. We were talking before the show started of what he does for the kids, and just pouring that positivity from the sport of fishing into kids. Some of these kids have never seen the bay. It's incredible. They've never seen the water. They've never held a fishing rod, which for guys like you and I, Lenny, who grew up doing this, that's almost, you can't comprehend it. And we know what the joy that fishing has brought to us over the years, and the passion and just the well-being of being out there and not in an environment where you're not doing something positive. Has meant to us, and we're trying to give that back through this organization. So I don't want to ramble on, but I'll give you kind of an idea. It's more than just the kids; it's the families too. So we give opportunities for the families to come out with their kids to spend some time. In addition to that, we're trying to work with kids who may have moderate to severe handicaps as well. Maybe fishing might not be their thing, but it gives them an experience that maybe they would never have. And it's just a great thing and a joy for us to pour into those kids and those organizations. We also partner with a lot of police departments, and the major theme with that is let's do something positive with these kids. And the kind of side effect of that is they get to spend time with the police, and there's so much negativity in the world today. These guys are trying to do something fun with these kids that's very close, that's very intimate, and that they can possibly take with them. So one of the things I'm very proud about with Combos for Kids is that every child that goes through one of our events gets a combo, which is funny. I really need to change this name, Lenny, because not everyone knows what a combo. You and I do, and we don't even think about it. But I've had people say, "What are you giving them? Like McDonald's combos or food combo?" No. It's a fishing combo. But yes, they get to take that with them. Here's the really cool thing, and one of the most proud things I have to share with you guys. So we've been working with one of the inner city youth programs, Cecil Kirk. And these are teenage kids. And, I work, God bless the director there, David McNair. We work with these guys very closely. These children have made a decision to take a positive route. We've done a couple events for them, and now they want to volunteer at the Combos for Kids events to mentor these kids, which is, I'm getting cold chills thinking about it, which is just phenomenal. So now you have someone who's walked a mile in your shoes, who's now doing something they really enjoy that is positive, and they want to share that with others.
EJ, I got to ask you, how is this funded?
So great question. And I'm so glad you brought that up. So initially, we had the power of anglers behind us. Okay, so that's how we got this thing rolling. We have had phenomenal partnerships with like-minded businesses. So you see on my shirt here, Plano and Penn and GI Jig. These guys have donated the very equipment that we use to support these kids. And it's not because, hey, I want to get my name out there. It's because it's the right thing to do. So if Ryan Hall and Scott Castleberry of Pure Fishing, if you guys see this broadcast, thank you so much. LJ from GI Jig Heads, this gentleman here, you know him, Lenny.
Yep.
He donates his time, his expertise. He's flying back in from Michigan to make this first event that we're doing on the boat so that he can run his boat. There's just so much passion around supporting these children. It's phenomenal. So that's how we're funded to a degree. We are also funded through the White Perch Open. So again, I'm glad you're bringing this up, Lenny. That's coming up August 13th. So if anyone's interested in that, it's a phenomenal tournament. It's more than a tournament. It's a celebration. There's food, there's music, the whole 9 yards, but 100% of the proceeds from the White Perch Open goes to Combos for Kids.
I did not realize that. That's heavy. And just for the record, now we got a question up from Dave on how volunteers can get involved. Before you answer that, I just want to say this is not, Anglers is a business. It's a family business, but it's a business, right? It is a business.
It is.
But this is not the only thing they do like this. They're quite involved in the community. They're quite involved in kind of spreading the gospel about fishing. And so I just want to point that out before saying, okay, how can volunteers get involved?
Yeah, so you can simply go to our website. Zach, you said you were going to pull that up. It's www.combosforkids.org, and you will see how to contact us. And at the very bottom of the page, you'll see my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me directly. I would love to hear from you. We're always looking for good people who are like-minded, who want to pour into these kids and families. Yep.
I'm going to encourage everybody viewing to get in touch. And EJ, I'm going to tell you right now, you let me know when and where to have my boat for a day taking out some of these kids. I'll be there.
Thank you so much. Hey, Lenny, if I may add one more comment here. So you were talking about anglers being involved and trying to get people into the sport. We had a brief discussion before we went on air about getting women into the sport of fishing. So I want to throw this out there because we have an event coming up in August. It's on the Anglers website. So you will go to the Anglers website and enroll in that. There are plenty of open spots for ladies who are interested in getting into the sport of fishing. We're going to have boats out there. We're going to take you out on boats. We're going to teach you to fish from the shoreline. We have a social media network set up, a Facebook page, so that you can connect with other women and really start getting involved into the sport of fishing. We'd love to see ladies get involved in it.
Very cool. Very cool. I can see Zach is keeping up with the comments coming in, so I'm not even going to ask him if there are more questions to answer. Okay. Well, here comes Dr. Mike with a question. How can we equate angling to dollars in the economy? It would be great to use this to show the politicians the importance of a robust recreational fishing fishery and to place commercial interests second. Well, economics clearly has a whole lot to do with this. I'm going to guess, Stephanie, you might have something to say on here? No?
I had a feeling you would toss that to me. I don't have the numbers at my fingertips. I can look them up to respond to that comment. But there is a big study that's been done that shows that fishing and boating are the number one outdoor activities driving the economy. It's pretty substantial, the money that is behind it and that goes towards supporting it. So I'll find that and I can pop it in the comments, but it is pretty big.
It's super substantial. I believe it's a Southwick study, right? That the American Sport Fishing Association has done every year. That's one of the studies.
Yeah,
I mean,
the
what we-
Bureau of Economic Analysis did one, actually. The government did it. And it was just a couple of years ago they started doing it, and it's fantastic. Let me find it.
Interesting. Donna, does this come into play on a state level? Do the state folks look at the numbers and say, hey, this is a really big thing we got to help support?
I don't know that they do look at it that way, because I think the state just wants to support fishing no matter what. You know, if numbers are up or numbers are down, I think it's considered sort of what DNR is all about, is providing the best opportunities to all our citizens to experience the outdoors, whether, you know, however they want to enjoy them. But I do know, on a side note, the Marine Trades Association in Maryland has done economic impact study of recreational boating in the state, and that's estimated over $3 billion a year, I think.
I think they say
like every boat you see on the water equates to like 7 jobs somewhere. So stuff like that. People do study it, and it definitely matters. I know, you know, I'm more tapped into the boating side of fishing and boating, but that, you know, they certainly need to know that for their lobbying efforts, watching bills downtown. They're almost every year, or, you know, every few years, you know, there will be a bill that comes up that says, you know, we should add a fee to boats, or add an extra charge for this or that, luxury tax, whatever you might call it. So we definitely keep up with those sorts of figures, so we know where boating's heading.
So on the fishing side, that's a really interesting segue into kind of another chunk of this discussion, which is access to fisheries as opposed to physical access. What Mike referred to was recreational versus commercial, right? And, you know, I don't want to diss the commercial fishermen. They're doing a service for folks, right? They're feeding people. That's great. There does have to be a balance to be found between what chunk of the resource goes to X and what chunk of the resource goes to Y. And economic benefit is certainly, you know, part of that calculation. But the access to fisheries, we've had a tough time with that in Maryland, I would say, in the last year or two. You know, catch and release anglers were not at all happy that they lost April in the state of Maryland. Especially because it's a time of year when a lot of it's a time of year when release mortality, the studies show, are likely much lower than during other times of the year. And many people sort of feel like, well, why'd they shut down fishing when we're doing the least amount of harm to the fishery? Here, Psyched Up is saying, why does the DNR shut down an entire month to fishing? April catch and release would bring back revenue to the economy. You know, that's a fair point. And during that month of April, who knows? I don't know if any calculations have been done as to just how much economic value to the recreational fishery was lost. And there's another side to the story. You know, that was done to maintain other portions of the fishery, be they commercial or recreational. But where's that balance? Was it worth doing? You know, I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that in March, there are a large number of light tackle guides working the bay. It's their job. They were very busy. And in April, they were done. They were just done. That's only one example. Donna, let's toss this hot potato right to you.
Oh, great. Well, I'm happy to start off by saying I don't work in regulations, but
we know darn well that you and the DNR want more people to be fishing, not fewer, right? We know that.
Well, yeah, and our job, the agency's job is to protect the resource for everybody.
Absolutely.
Right?
And we know a lot of factors. There are a lot of factors swirling around on this, right? It's not as simple as you can fish, you can't fish. There's a lot going on here. But what I want to ask you is, for recreational anglers who are out there watching right now, what can they do to help the government understand just how important an issue like this is? Like an April closure for recreational fishing, to some people may seem like no big deal, right? We'll just stop catch and release in April. They can't keep those fish anyway. How can we have an impact? How can we let the powers that be understand that's actually kind of a really important thing.
Well, that's a good question. I would say, we are always accepting, public comment. It's always welcome. Anytime we have a regs change on the books, even after that regulation change has taken place, the scientists will certainly study the impact of it. But we always welcome public comment. And I believe the regulations page of DNR has a place to do that. And if not, I can double check. I'll throw it in the chat here while we're on the call today, and I'll find the best place to send it. But that would be my first recommendation, is just to, politely, respectfully, share your thoughts on what the impact of those decisions are, because that does help. I mean, they do take that into consideration. They need real world data from the people that are impacted by these changes.
So that's interesting. I'm very familiar with giving the public comment during a rules change, but I didn't realize you could just give it at any time.
I believe so. I'm not promising, but I'm going to double check. I'm going to find the right email for it and put it in here in the chat. I'm looking online as I do it.
Cool. Thank you. I'd love to know that. I didn't really realize that was a possibility. So Patrick's jumping in and saying you gotta love the Pittman-Robertson Act, giving a portion of every fishing purchase to conservation. Glad it passed decades ago. Yeah, Patrick, nothing passes in the current political climate, evidently. But yes, you're absolutely right, and that funds an awful lot of what's going on here. Oh yeah, and Dave's bringing up the advisory commissions and committees, and we should encourage people to get involved in those. Right, that's a way to have a seat at the table, to get your voice out there. I want to ask you a question. I'm guessing that you guys in the store probably saw the difference between March and April just in what people were buying and what was going on.
Yeah, I think Anglers is an anomaly, Lenny. We really didn't.
Really?
No. Anglers has done pretty well, and I think a lot has to do with the location, and a lot has to do with the service that you get through the store. I'm not pitching Anglers, but I'm just being real here. We really didn't see that much of a difference. No. And in fact, we had a big pen event during that time, which did pretty well. And through the pen event, a lot of trolling stuff gets sold through there. And there wasn't really a noticeable difference.
Interesting. Well, what do you hear from people coming in and out the door during times like that? Do people talk about, this being closed, that being different?
Yeah. So interestingly enough, I mean, you hear a lot of things, obviously, right? But I would say the bulk of what you hear there is from an angler's perspective, a general public angler's perspective. They don't care. They really, it would be okay if we got rid of that trophy season time anyway. They're just not, everybody's, and I think that's not a bad thought, but they're just trying to do the right thing. Like, hey, I'm going to spend all this money on this equipment. I'm going to spend all this money on this fuel. I'm going to spend my time up there, and I'm going to get one fish, or I'm going to get a fish that could possibly be a breeder fish or something like that. In my head, and I'll tell you one thing I did hear a lot of. If the goal is to protect the breeder fish, why is the limit? And I'm sorry, Donna, I'm not trying to not trying to go the regulation route, but why is the limit 35? Wouldn't you want to go smaller with the limit? So yeah, I mean, those are some of the things we're hearing in the store. People, I don't think it's that big of an issue, at least from the customers that I've talked to.
Trophy season, there's not a doubt in my mind you're absolutely on target. I think the recreational fishing community on the whole is kind of done with it. And I can't speak for everybody, obviously, but most people are thoroughly convinced that it's really not the smartest thing in the world to do. And I'd wager if you could take a poll of all the Maryland recreational Chesapeake Bay fishermen, you'd probably find that they would rather have an April catch and release month,
yes,
and just quit keeping those fish, because we all know they're like pretty darn important. Now,
You are spot on. Yep.
now let's again, we're going to go back to Stephanie. Let's take this to a national level, because this is sort of a fragmented thing. Specific fisheries are very important in one place and moot in another. So how do you guys see it on a national level?
Specific to the trends in shopping and regulations and
In regulations and in fisheries and the health of fisheries. Like, the health of fisheries is a big part of what ends up dictating our access.
Sure. I mean, the rules and regulations is another piece of, it's one of those barriers to participation. It's very confusing for people coming into it. I mean, think about, we're sitting here talking about it as confusing, and we're anglers, right? Can you imagine coming in, and a lot of people just don't even know they need a license or understand that, there are only certain kinds of fish you can pull in right now. So it's certainly, from a newcomer perspective, has an impact. And in studies that we've done, people say, that they would have a better experience if they had more information upfront and available to them.
That's interesting. So what we're really talking about here is a strong connection between access and the health of our fisheries. And that is significant. And that's one of the reasons why CCA Maryland, and CCA in general, honestly, is every bit as concerned with access as they are with fisheries, and by extension, habitat. Let's bounce it right back to EJ and the scuttlebutt in the store. Do you hear a lot of people who are concerned about the state of the fisheries and the habitat in the Chesapeake Bay?
Yes. It's very specifically, crabbing seems to be a big one. And I know it's a fishery. You always hear the stories of, gosh, even a few years ago, hey, I could go out, I could get a bushel of crabs. Now it takes forever. I have to move my line. I have to do this. I have to do that. It's hardly not worth it. I may as well pay the $200 a half bushel to get that. You do hear that a lot. It's hit and miss, Lenny. You know how it is. You talk to 10 different people, you get 10 different things. But as a whole, there are concerns. It's what I hear primarily is around crabbing and sometimes rockfish as well. Yeah.
Okay. I'm surprised perch isn't in there, because white perch, as long as I've been alive, was like the Mr. Reliable. Like, you could always go catch a pile of white perch. And the last 4 or 5 years, that it hasn't always been true necessarily.
Yeah, I to be honest with you, I haven't heard anything about white perch there. Me personally, as a fisherman, I haven't seen. I mean, they're still in my old spots, and still doing pretty well with them. I mean, you travel around a lot more than I do, so you probably can notice the difference.
EJ, are you saying you can out white perch fish me?
No.
Darn it.
No,
you probably can.
No, this is where I learned right there. That's where I learned right there.
No, you probably can. But I honestly, I have noticed that the last few years, it just used to be silly easy. Actually, I got to go with the crab thing too. Mm-hmm. That is true. I remember 10 years ago, the question wasn't, could you catch a bushel of crabs? The question was, would it take you an hour or 3 hours?
Yes.
Today, it's kind of like, man, if I get a half a bushel, I'm pretty much a happy camper.
Yeah.
So, Donna, I want to pose the question to you a little bit differently. And if you're not comfortable with this, just take a pass. But, we're about 6 months into a new administration in the state of Maryland. And I, for one, have had tremendous hopes for this new administration, because it really seems to care a whole lot more than certain other administrations we've had in the past. And I'm just wondering if you can answer, is there any kind of change in attitude that's visible throughout the state with the changing of the guard?
It's funny because we are still very much in what I would call like a hybrid work environment where we're not all there together all the time, and there's not the chatter and the buzz like you might
Oh,
have
okay.
had in years past. But I will say, at least our new secretary, Josh Kurtz, has been very engaging. He's made it a point to have meet and greets with the staff across the state to make sure he hears, and he's invited people to be very candid with him about their concerns from within the agency. So he's definitely seems to be, from what I'm hearing and seeing, a very hands-on secretary and very, I do agree. Yeah, it'll probably be a very different shift in involvement, frankly, than the last 8 years. It doesn't change, the science. It doesn't change maybe what's going on. The crabs don't care who's in the state house, right? They're still affected by whatever's really going on out there. But yeah, I think it will certainly be different. I will say that.
Okay. Okay.
Lenny, can I add something, if you don't mind?
Absolutely, please.
So one thing I forgot to mention is what's been interesting is with this invasive species thing. There has definitely been a noticeable shift in the customers that are coming in targeting these catfish specifically. So yeah, and I don't know, maybe that's the reason why I'm not hearing a lot about the perch, because hey, perch aren't biting. I want to catch something. I know I can get a catfish. So, and you asked me what's the big hot selling bait? Well, it's LY. Well, why? Because catfish destroy LY out there. So, yeah, maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know.
So that's interesting that you're saying they're targeting the cats more because they're so available.
For sure, 1,000%. Yep, people are coming in specifically. How do I catch these catfish I'm hearing about?
Huh.
And that's what we've been pushing too. I mean, I will say that Department of Natural Resources has really been saying, hey, we know that rockfish are under a lot of pressure. We know that perch are under pressure. So what can you go for? Get out there and fish by all means, but go target the invasive species, get rid of these blue catfish, go for the, snakeheads, what have you. Yeah. I think it's catching on.
It is. And Lenny, I don't know, you probably already know this, but even the guides are taking a different approach to these invasive species. They are jigging soft plastics to jig up catfish. It's crazy, and it's successful. I mean, I know a lot of the guys at the shop. Alex brought back pictures of tons of catfish that they were jigging up with a standard jig head and a standard soft plastic, a BKD, and it's fun. And
it is fun.
Into it. Yeah,
it is fun. I'll never forget the first time I had one hit a jig. I was fishing for rockfish, and I was shocked. I was like, "What?"
Yeah, I'll never forget the first one I caught on an umbrella. So right. I was like, "What is this?"
Go figure.
Yeah, right.
So these are local fisheries. These are local issues. Stephanie, on a national level, how important is fisheries health and habitat to your mission?
It's very important because we all know that that rush you get when you hook up to a fish, and there's a lot of other things you can enjoy about the fishing experience, right? There's the relaxation and being in nature. There's the great bonding with your friends, but nothing beats that thrill of the catch, and that's what really keeps people coming back. So it's very, very important. Not only that we keep the fisheries healthy, but we keep the communications really, really clear with people. So there is a clear understanding of the why, the what, and the why, and the when.
Now, you sit on a number of national level committees for different industry organizations. Does this topic get talked about?
Oh, sure. Yeah. And depending on the state, Florida, red snapper fishery, you can get people really going on. Certainly in some places, more than others, but absolutely, it's a hot topic.
So Mike's asking, who or what agency can serve as a unified lobby and voice for us? CCA is one, but is there a Maryland-centric voice since we lost MSSA? Now, I was about to ask all three of you, what can we do about this? And then I was going to interrupt you and jump in and say, wait, I know. Because the answer is people join CCA. Now, it's true, Mike, that CCA is not a completely Maryland organization, but CCA Maryland is 100% dedicated to Maryland. it is our lone voice at the table these days. MSSA's demise was a shame, but it's history. It's just gone. It ain't coming back. CCA is still standing, is stronger than it was back in the MSSA days. And it is our voice at the table. It is the one representative that we have in all these discussions that go on, be they political, be they regarding regulations. And I have been involved to some level with CCA, and I can tell you, they are not representing what some people think they are. They are representing the recreational angling community. That's a fact. That's the way it is. So I want to say, before we let Donna get more into R3, I got to say, everybody watching this right now, if you care enough to watch this, you ought to be a member of CCA. They are there to represent you. And if you're not, I got something I want you to think about, okay? Go to the store right now and try and buy a bag of bloodworms. You know how much a bag of bloodworms costs? It's
$20.
It's how much?
Almost $20.
Almost $20. Okay. It doesn't cost much more than that to join CCA. So I'm going to plant a little seed. First off, if you haven't already joined CCA, right now, Google it and join. Second off, the next time you buy a bag of bloodworms, I want this little flag to pop up in your brain and go, I'm spending X on bloodworms, and I should be spending Y on a CCA membership because they're going to help me catch more fish with those bloodworms. They're going to help me improve the habitat. They're going to help me improve the fisheries. And you know what? They really will. So I really think that that is a important thing to bring out. All right, I'm going to back off now. Donna, you want to address Dave's comment?
Yes, hang on real quick, because I am going to share a link in the chat to Zach that he can share with other folks. Here we go. So I saw somebody asked about boating access on the Western Shore from Annapolis to Baltimore. And we, of course, it's mostly Anne Arundel County, which would be responsible for that. But, you know, that's the county executive's huge on public access, I know. And we not long ago did install a whole first brand new access point in ages, which was up at Fort Smallwood. So that was a big change. But yeah, it's getting access to private land is really hard. But yes, absolutely. And was there, I'm sorry, did I miss, there was another question about DNR's R3 plan. Yeah. What we are looking at, we don't have a single R3 plan for the agency. There is a hunter R3 plan and there's a fishing R3 plan. For some reason, I don't know, it's funny how things work in Fish and Wildlife, or in our wildlife division. They have managed to hire a whole team of people to implement their plan, and they're cranking away. Unfortunately, fishing is, again, funded by, we don't get much general funds, right? So we don't have anybody who's implementing the Angler R3 plan. There's no staff, there's nothing. So there's no budget, but we do have a team of people that work on, you know, all things related to it. So there's no one person leading it, but Gina Hunt is a big part of it, and Paul Genovese and Eric Splokovitz, who does the fishing report, and we are all taking on pieces of it. Letha Grimes does an awesome job teaching women to fish and do other things in our Becoming an Outdoors Woman classes. We have a great group, Chelsea, who teaches youth to fish as part of our aquatic resource education. We call Hooked on Fishing, Not Drugs program. We are doing a lot of different things where we can, and targeting, trying to renew licenses as much as we can in terms of keeping people engaged and making sure that they retain their license and keep fishing, and always improving our offerings on our web pages. And actually, one of the more exciting things that we're very much looking forward to is a new, well, sometime probably in the next year or so, and this, I don't know if this is public knowledge, but we are going to be replacing the licensing system at DNR. So that has been bid out. I don't, they'll probably be announcing a vendor in the next 6 months, and so on and so forth. But that'll give, I think to Stephanie's point earlier, a lot of times it's very confusing, even just to obtain a license, because there's a lot of different licenses, right? And then so on and so forth. So we're hoping the new system, when that's in place, will be better for the customer and better for our staff to actually have a dashboard of data so that we can track and see, like you said about the leaky bucket, who's coming in, who are we losing, how long did we retain them, how many times did they go fishing. We want to be able to sell things like a gift certificate of a fishing license for Christmas, right? We can't do that right now. So it should be a big improvement for us when that new thing comes online.
I'm not going to lose my DNR ID number, am I? Because I've got it like engraved.
Yeah. Okay. All right. For you, we'll make sure that it stays the same.
Okay.
Could I just say something really quick? Donna, you guys are doing, I know, you say you don't have a dedicated budget or a dedicated one staff person, but you really are doing a lot of tremendous work. And I think, leveraging the opportunities that RBFF has to offer, we work with them on an initiative called the First Catch Centers, where they're taking mobile trailers out to audiences to teach them how to fish. They are a grant recipient of one of our R3 grants. So they're doing on-water boating and fishing instruction, offering training into some of those groups that are lapsing out at high rates, like women only, or underrepresented groups in fishing and boating, the Black community, the Latino community. They also work on a boat registration reactivation program with us. For several years, we've been doing that. Anyone who has a boat sitting in their yard, we're like, hey, the fish are biting. Why is that boat sitting in your yard? So you really are doing a lot of tremendous work, and I give you a lot of props for that.
Stephanie, I'm glad you brought that up, because we anglers partnered with Letha. You mentioned Letha and Gina on those trailers, and those trailers are phenomenal. I got a chance to see them when we were down at your event, Donna, see one of the trailers, and what a great concept. I mean, they're going to, so just to clarify for everyone who's listening, DNR is pulling a trailer up to a place to fish. And if you don't have the funds, the means to buy fishing equipment, they're going to loan you the fishing equipment to do it. Not only that, but they're going to also help you learn how to use it. So I think it's phenomenal. You guys are doing some great work.
Well, that's great. I'll pass that on to the team. But yeah, absolutely. Those fishing trailers are awesome. They're super popular. And if somebody out there has an event at a club or at a school or at a camp or something where you think it would be great to have a First Catch trailer come, it's super fun. It starts out on land. We teach how to tie knots, how to rig the pole. And then, we give them plastic fish on the grass. Then they kind of practice catching those first. And, you kind of build the skills and the confidence a little bit and then help them get going. So, those are a lot of fun. So if those are something that would be interested, just let me know and I'll pass it on. I know Lenny and the gang have my contacts. So.
Absolutely. And I just got to tell you, it's kind of funny. When my wife and I got married, when we first met, when we were young, approximately 350 years ago, she was actually a hooked on fishing, not on drugs instructor for the DNR.
Oh, wow.
Oh my gosh.
Way back in the day. Yes.
Oh.
Yes. She's a teacher, so she had her summers off, and she did that every summer for a number of years. And she would always come home with a smile on her face.
That's cool, man. And see, these are the programs that are all funded by, the fishing tackle, the boat fuel, all of that money that goes into RBFF or comes into DNR. I mean, that's most of these are federally funded programs that we're talking about too. So, again, having the numbers out there really helps, having more people participating and letting them know that, hey, that fishing license is going towards a good cause, You're helping conservation efforts.
Now, I want to ask you each to address a question in turn, but before I do that, I want to remind everybody, we're an hour in at this point. So folks watching, if you've got any questions, now's the time to plug them in. Zach will get them up on screen. Okay, that didn't take long. Lars is asking, how many DNR events and R3 events did DNR have last year? That was confusing. Good stuff. CCA has a trailer too, which is shareable for the right group. So do we know how many DNR events there were? Is that?
I could look it up, but I would say over a dozen.
Nice.
We do so many different things. That's part of what our staff does on the regular. And then we get summer interns to help too. So at least a dozen, probably more.
Cool. So, what the question I wanted to ask you all in turn, I'm just going to go by my screen because we all have different screens, but I'm seeing Stephanie first. So, Stephanie, I'm going to ask you first. You've been in this for over a decade, long time. From your vantage point, and again, give us the national view on this, has angler access increased or decreased through time?
I don't know that I have seen it swing in either way substantially. I know that it continues to be a barrier to participation. It's something that comes up in our top 10 barriers every single year since I can remember.
Okay.
Since the beginning of time. Yeah.
Okay. EJ, what do you think? Increase or decrease?
I'm going to go with increase.
Interesting. Tell us why.
Well, I think a lot had to do with COVID for sure. But I feel like, maybe it's just me, but I feel like a lot of the customers that come into anglers are, like you said earlier, brand new to the sport. Hey, I've never done this before. Hey, I just bought a new boat. Hey, I want to get my kids involved in fishing. And those by far are my favorite people to work with. They're just so enthusiastic about it and so, willing to learn and listen. And yeah, I feel like that it's increased. Yeah.
Donna, what do you think? Increase or decrease?
Well, I'm going to have to guess what the question was. I had a little hiccup with the sound when you were asking it the first time.
I'm sorry. Through the recent decades, do you think that angler access has increased or decreased?
There's different kinds of access. So I'm going to give you the two-sided answer, right? I would say I know for a fact that wildlife and resource agencies like my own are doing a lot more than we ever have to expand the room in the tent, if you will, to reach out to minorities, to reach out to women and so forth. So in that sense, I would say it's increasing. At least we're trying. On the other hand, certainly with pressures that we face on some of the fisheries, there may have been restriction access in terms of closures or creel limits and things like that. And those can come and go. But so, I hope it's increasing.
So that's interesting. So we got a little bit of everywhere there. And what I see is it's changing more than I would say it's increasing or decreasing. We've lost some physical access spots. We've gained some physical access spots. We've had the attempt to get more access spots that don't work. That happens too. And, snakeheads are a great example of how our access has actually increased, right?
Yeah.
Our access to rockfish has decreased. We've lost 6 weeks of season throughout the year. Meanwhile, it used to be that you went to the Blackwater River and there's kind of so-so bass fishing and a few crappie and maybe some perch, but a lot of that water's shallow and hot and there was just nothing to catch there. That's all new territory to fish now, right? It's all riddled with snakeheads. Love them or hate them. And yes, there are environmental upsides and downsides. But whatever you may think, the fact of the matter is that's new access for anglers. So that's a bright spot there. EJ mentioned the blue cats earlier. That's another one. Perhaps that's one, that comes with some greater cost. But it is access that is increased. So let me put it out there for discussion. What can Joe Average Angler do to help work on increasing access? Does anyone have any thoughts on that? It's a tough question, right?
Yeah.
It is.
I always say invite somebody to go out with you. If you can bring somebody new into the fold, do it by all means. Break down those barriers, help people understand how to do it and where to go, and mentor them a little bit.
Yep. So I'm sorry, Lenny, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that's a great idea. Go ahead, EJ.
No, I was just going to say, Donna, you're spot on, and I look at, especially since I'm older, when I was younger, it was all about you must catch fish, but it's more than just catching fish. It is an experience. It's, even if you're taking your kids out, or if you're taking your kids' friends out, or if you're taking your kids' friends and their parents out, they're getting on a boat. They're enjoying themselves, or they're going to the shoreline. They're enjoying themselves. It's more than just let's catch a fish. It's an experience, and it's a positive experience. So yeah, I agree with you 1,000%, Donna. I think that's a great way of approaching it.
Oh man. So Psyched Up Adventures just brought up an incredibly important point we have not addressed. There is another barrier to access, and that is cost. And that's a reality. Whether you get a boat or you just get a fishing rod and go to a pond, that is a barrier. Does anybody have any thoughts on how that can be approached, combated, worked on?
Yeah, I mean, at the micro level, there are organizations out there that help, like DNR, like Combos for Kids. I feel like if someone's really that interested in it, it's incumbent upon us to try and help with that. So organizations like DNR, like Combos for Kids, other nonprofit, like-minded organizations, CCA, for example, like you heard Lars happens to be a volunteer for Combos for Kids too. He's a great guy. They put together a fishing trailer. I think it's on us to get that awareness out there so that people know where they can go if they really want to fish and they don't have the means. All the fisher people that I know are pretty decent people, and they're willing to help and lean in. I'm not saying that that's the end all be all answer, but there are options out there for folks. And
Yeah.
we get into it.
And go ahead, Stephanie. I got something too.
No, go ahead. That's fine.
Oh, I always, like to remind people that, the cost to fishing on the water from a boat is high, right? Without a doubt. But there are plenty of fishing piers out there that you don't need a boat. You don't need all that fuel and those expenses too. Many of them are, tucked away in some of the quieter corners. And also I know a number of pretty much any of the larger yacht clubs in my area anyway, and around Maryland, they most all have a foundation arm too. And in that foundation, part of their mission is increasing participation in boating and usually fishing too, because it's a great gateway drug for kids, right? You get them out there and you got to give them something to do on the boat, right? So I would look at some of those opportunities too.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, there's a ton of free information online, and that's, kind of what takemefishing.org is built for as it relates to access on the how-to and the where-to information. I think our local businesses have a tremendous opportunity to help with that. Don't let a customer walk out the door with saying, like, do you know where you're going? Do you know, how can I help you? Do you have your license? So much stuff is happening transactional online now that I think we're missing that opportunity. And with it being such a local activity, it's really critical.
Yeah. And earlier, I think Dave had reminded me to mention too, that there is a tackle loaner program that the DNR runs. So I think most public libraries were participating at one time. So you could go in and pick up a fishing rod and borrow it for the day, bring it back. So, yeah.
So Zach, I think we had one comment we didn't address that came and went. I think it was from another David. Thank you. So with R3, is there anything being done to revisit the kids who get the combos to see if they're getting the opportunities they need to fish again? Now we should just point out, R3 is one thing. Combos for Kids is a different. It's kind of its own program. I guess it kind of falls under the category of R3 in some ways because you are new anglers. But it is a specific program. So EJ, do you want to address that specific to Combos for Kids?
Yeah. So that's a complicated question, but I will go back to one of the things that I said earlier that I'm most proud of. Hearing that some of these kids, and you know that whole scenario, if you can impact just one, you're successful. Some of the kids that we've helped and supported through Combos for Kids are now so into fishing that they want to come back and mentor some kids that are from similar situations like that.
Nice.
To me, that is the win. With that, that's a measurement of ROI right there.
Heck yeah.
And
That's awesome.
I will just say, I love what you're doing, EJ. And, you know, the data, the national data shows that 84% of today's anglers fished before the age of 12. So it's absolutely important to get that experience when you're young.
Agreed.
So Stephanie, can you mentioned takemefishing.org?
Mhm.
Can you give us a little more about just what that is and how it comes into play here? Because that hasn't come up yet.
Well, sure. So we run a national campaign, Take Me Fishing, to educate people on how to fish, where to fish, and connect them with their state agency for their licensing and registration. We exist kind of as the industry's boating and fishing marketing arm, if you will, trying to get new people in. So we have tons of information on all the how-to and where-to that you could ever possibly need. And because sometimes the state agency websites can be complicated, from our map, you choose your state and you can click directly to the licensing page or directly to the registration page. So you're not wandering around trying to figure out where to go.
Now that, of course, is on a national level. I just have to point out, it would really be negligent of me not to, that on a local and regional level, a great resource for how to, where to is FishTalk. How can I not say it? I'm sorry. Self-plugging. That's terrible. But how can I not say it? FishTalkMag.com. Thank you very much, Zach.
Hey, I did want to follow up on that question real quick, Lenny, which was just to say, too, that in DNR, some of the folks in our fisheries team have created what we call a new angler newsletter. So when we do our 3 events, we are collecting emails and then following up with some additional prompts and, you know, reminders and help. And, you know, again, do you know where the closest place is? Do you need help? Stuff like that. Try to keep them connected and enthused about it.
That's great. That is awesome. So, you know, Combos for Kids is one specific, you call it an organization or a
It's an organization.
An organization falling under R3. Stephanie, are there any out there on the national level that you guys see that you're aware of? Or are there any that other folks should be, know about?
I'm sorry, I was posting a link in the chat. What was the question?
Are there so Combos for Kids is a local organization, right? That kind of falls under R3. Are there any similar that are on a national scale that you know of that folks should know about?
Well, I mean, a lot of the national organizations like the Association for Fish and Wildlife Agencies is working with all the state Fish and Wildlife or DNRs on R3. Resources exist on the hunting side as well. Certainly, there's a lot of people doing R3 work. Now, it's kind of funny to me because R3, in essence, is just really good marketing practice or customer service. You want to bring in new people, keep your existing customers, and bring back previous. But R3 has really taken hold as a catchphrase in our community. But there's a lot of great folks working on it.
Yeah, I still don't get that reactivate thing. How can they not be still fishing if they fished and experienced the awesomeness and incredibleness of fishing?
Well, yeah, I'll give you an example. Okay, you grew up as a kid fishing. This is a really pretty typical pattern. You grow up fishing, you go off to college, and you get involved in other things, and you don't have your parents' boat, and you don't have their fishing equipment. A lot of people fall out of it in their 20s and pick it back up when they start families and have kids, and they're looking for activities. So that would be a reactivation.
Okay. Kind of blows my mind they can fall out of it. But
I know you're just being cheeky, but.
So I just want to put it out there for an open mic. If any of you have anything that we haven't covered yet that you want to talk about on this topic of access, please, bring it up. While you're thinking about that, Herb is coming in here and saying, speaking of lost public access, what's the latest on the Bill Burton Fishing Pier on the chop tank or its replacement? Now, Donna, that's probably not in your wheelhouse, is it? Or is it?
Well, yeah, I guess I'm I'm unaware of what the issue is. Then has it been? I know part of it was closed for a bit. Is it still offline? Is that what the question is?
Yeah, I believe it
Yes.
is. The last that I heard was that they were talking about rehabbing one section of it to maintain
Mhm.
something there, but kind of giving up on the other section. It was sort of too far gone and would cost like 10 to 12 bazillion dollars to fix it
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. I'm afraid I don't have an update on that, but I'm sure if they can preserve it, they would definitely want to. I saw people fishing on it a few weeks ago when I was there. The southern side of it, I think. Or
Oh, maybe a
whatever.
portion's back open. I would love to see that rehabbed, whatever section of it can be saved, let's save. I will mention that, Herb, I do know for sure the shorelines are still accessible. There is still some good fishing that can be done from the shorelines. But that project was a total win. It was a real hit. A lot of people went there to fish. So hopefully that's
Yeah.
keep it going. I lost that one, Zach. You were too fast on me, man. I did not see that last comment. It came and it went. But now we got Patrick up. I think everyone can work on being positive ambassadors to anyone who will listen and leave no trace after you come off the water. Leaving new spot covered in trash is the quickest way to lose access. That's a very good point. We have seen access lost on the eastern shore, particularly in some of those snakehead holes over the course of the last year, and trash was constantly cited as one of the reasons. Parking was the other. And I believe it is true that some people were parking on basically marsh, which was causing some issues, but that's absolutely an issue. Okay, so Dave's saying there's very limited pure access. I'm afraid it will not be reopened anytime soon. Well, hopefully that's something we can work on. I don't know how we get funding for something like that.
Yeah, that's considered a state park, as far as I know. So it is under the Maryland Park Service. If I get any information, I'll pass it on to you, Lenny, and you can get it out to your readers.
Please do, and we'll get it into the comments on this too.
Yeah.
So BKD is mentioning there are opportunities for kids to join CCA for free. They receive free literature, make friends. It's a start. Thank you for pointing that out, BKD Lures. That's absolutely true.
Yep. Can I add something to that too, Lenny?
Please, EJ, please.
So he's right. I'm assuming that's Bill from BKD that's saying that. So with Dave and his tournaments that he's doing, the Chesapeake Open tournament, I'm sure you're aware of, all of the kids that are involved in all of these support groups like Combos for Kids and so forth, they get free admission to these tournaments. We're going to partner with CCA this year and bring some of the volunteer boats in there so we can get some of the kids off the shoreline and out onto a boat as well. So yeah, CCA definitely pours into it. Yep, for sure.
Awesome. All right. Well, did anyone come up with anything they wanted to get out there?
I forgot the question.
Yeah, the rapid fire was amazing there for a few. I'm afraid we lost one. There was one that was on a white background that my eyes did not.
It had to do with trash. It was.
Oh, it was
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that is an important thing to point out, and I'm going to embarrass Zach now, but this is true. I'm going to tell a true story. Zach and I went snakehead fishing on the Eastern Shore. He brought a bag, an empty trash bag. He had tucked into his tackle box, and you know what he did? He didn't put his trash in it. He picked up trash and put it in it.
That's cool. Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that gains you access instead of losing access.
Yeah.
And if everybody just took what they brought with them, it really, trash wouldn't be a big giant issue, but it is because everybody doesn't do that.
And Lenny, let me just throw in there if I can. Of course, fishing line is one of the deadliest kinds of marine debris that there is. And so if nothing else, please don't leave any line behind or, sharp, lures, anything that, can hurt somebody that's been left behind. So please pick that up because that'll hurt birds and fish and everything else.
Yeah, the big ball of line you see stuck on the rocks is just, oh, please.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. It's dangerous.
Shove it. If you don't have a bag, shove it in your pocket. I mean, shove it in your tackle.
Yeah. It doesn't take up any space. It's not heavy. Take it home.
Yeah. And I guess we should point out, you can actually recycle monofilament fishing line, not so much braid, but if you take the monofilament, EJ Anglers used to have a box for that. Do they still?
Yeah, I'd have to look into that, Lenny. I'm not 100% sure off the top of my head.
I'm not either, but I remember once upon a time there was a box you could throw your mono into and it would go to the recycling. I know that if that's not the case, you can mail it. I believe it's Pure
Berkeley.
Fishing.
Yeah, Berkeley Fishing had that program, and
Right.
I know I got a grant from Fish and Wildlife Foundation and put out recycling bins at all the state park fishing piers a few years ago. Frankly, I don't even know if that stuff gets, from some of the state parks. It's like I don't even care if it just goes in the trash. I just don't want to go in the
Yeah,
water. I'm
just
just happy to get a
environment.
place to go.
Sure. I've seen those, the PVC tubes, right?
Yeah. I made about 60 of those.
I've
And I think
absolutely
Boat
seen
US Foundation does that.
Yeah, Boat US took it national. Yeah, we stole the idea from Florida Wildlife and Conservation.
Nice.
Well, thank you for that. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
All right, Zach, I'm going to give you a last call on questions. And I'm going to say, everybody, I'm going to give you a last call on an open mic. Does anyone have anything we haven't covered they really want to be sure we get into the conversation here? Because it has been a good conversation. This is an important topic.
I think I would just add that, when it comes to communicating with consumers about access, I think we have a little bit of a disconnect happening. When I look at the data from a national perspective, a third of anglers say their expectations for the first time they go fishing is they're going to have ease of access. But then the number one obstacle to enjoyment is the fishing spots are crowded. And then if you look at another take on it, reasons for starting to fish, number 6 is ease of access. But then reasons for stopping fishing, limited access to waterways. So people are coming in thinking like, oh, this is great. I'm going to have all this access and it's going to be fabulous. And then that's not what they're actually experiencing. So I think how we message that, Donna, earlier you were saying like, let's promote some of these other less crowded places and drive people to them. For access.
So Donna, I would like to request that the DNR build fishing piers into the bay approximately every mile going down. Can we do that?
All right, sure. I will put that request in for you first thing in the morning.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Because really the answer here is not fewer people fishing. It's more spots to go fishing.
Yeah. Unfortunately, land acquisition is a very expensive and onerous thing to do, but you understand that process. But one thing I would toss out to all the anglers that are maybe listening or online or what have you is, I know it sounds really silly, but be nice. Like if there's a new angler that comes out and they're trying this, and this is why we just did a welcome to boating and fishing event, they don't know what they're doing. And if they get laughed at or if they get teased, they ain't coming back. You know what I mean? So try to be welcoming. If you see somebody struggling, maybe offer to lend them a hand or something, but certainly don't pick on them. And the same goes for women and minorities. They already feel very out of place when they're out there. They look different. They know they look different, or whether it's anybody from some, minority class of folks, be nice and just try to make everybody feel welcome.
Yeah. So Donna, I'm going to piggyback on that. And I'm going to say that is the secret sauce to anglers' success. When you step in that store, you are greeted, you are welcomed. And I don't care. We practice something we call the you matter philosophy. So we don't care if you're the person's fishing off the rocks at Sandy Point or, you're on the $100,000 Parker Pilot House. We don't care. We don't care who you are, what color you are. We're going to help you. And there is enough fish out there for people to enjoy themselves. Everybody talks about, oh, you're burning spots. No, there's enough places out there for someone to go out and catch a fish and have a good time and share some memories with their families. So yes. Sorry, I'm plugging anglers, Lenny. I have to get that in. But that's one of the reasons why I'm there, because I have that philosophy as well. So you're 1,000% correct, Donna, on that.
That is perfectly okay, EJ. And I'm glad you brought up the whole burning spots thing, because I'm not sure there's anyone in the Chesapeake Bay region who's had the finger pointed at them more often than me on burning spots. And I see it. I'm like, look, do you like to share with people or are you selfish?
Yes.
That's kind of how I see it. If you're not willing to share these spots with people, I mean, honestly, it's kind of selfish. It really is. And a
Someone.
lot of these folks,
Sorry.
yeah,
Sorry.
no, a lot of these folks, like, they need a little helping hand to get started. And you know what? If you're that good an angler, go find another spot.
Absolutely. Yep.
Because if you're that good, you can go somewhere else and catch fish and let them enjoy what you've enjoyed, right? I mean, come on.
Every one of us had someone help us at some
Yes.
point.
Yes.
I mean, that's just is what it is. So.
Yes. A very good guide who will remain nameless once said to me, if you get called a spot burner, then the response is, how come you don't have any other spots? You only have one spot? Really?
It's true. Yeah.
All right. Well, folks, this has been a fantastic conversation. I want to thank you all so much. Stephanie, Donna, EJ, thank you so much for joining in. Can't tell you how much we appreciate it. People out there, I want to thank you for taking the time tonight. We really appreciate you anglers for tuning in. I want to extend a thanks to Dave Sikorsky and Chris Dollar for coming up with this concept in the first place, and then pushing to make the Chesapeake Perspectives happen. That took some doing, and they did it. A monster thanks goes to FishTalk's kayak angling guru, production manager, and tech whiz, Zach Ditmars. He is the wizard behind the curtain, people. He is. Finally, I want to remind everybody, we have one more Chesapeake Perspective this year. It will be Thursday, September 21, same time, same channel. Thursday, September 21. The topic will be habitat preservation and restoration. This is an issue that is beyond critical here on the Chesapeake Bay. We touched on it just a little bit tonight because it ties in with angler access, but truly, I just don't know how there's anything more important for us to get a handle on than habitat and restoration. I mean, it's as critical as it gets. Folks, I hope we will see you then. And until then, I'm going to say good night. Thank you very much for tuning in, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks again for the opportunity.
Thank you.